Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a lovely day. So, do you want to take your avatar to the next level? Do you want to have custom shaders, maybe some custom animations, or maybe particle effects or something like that? And also, are you wondering how on earth can VSFAvatar get into Warudo? Well, I got some news for you. First and foremost, Warudo does not support VSFAvatar files. And before I get through the whole Warudo SDK on how to convert your model into a Warudo avatar format, I do want to elaborate regarding universal file formats and then asset bundles, so that way it makes more sense of why VSFAvatar is not supported. Who knows, things might change in the future, but even then, allow me to elaborate some stuff. So, to start off though, what is a universal 3D file format, or a universal file format when it comes to 3D? Well, for example, GLTF and FBX are, there's still many more file formats that are universal, but FBX and GLTF, they are universal file formats. They are accepted in most 3D programs, whether it's game engine, 3D animation programs and such. And when it comes to the VRM format, VRM is a modified GLTF format. So because it's a modified GLTF format, that's why VRM models, they are able to go into Blender, Maya, or other game engines and such. It's because it's a universal format and it follows under either GLTF or FBX standard. There's other file formats like how STL is for 3D printing and such, and so on and so on. However, there is something called asset bundle models. Asset bundle models are non-universal file formats. They could be depending on how it's set up, but for the most part, asset bundle models, they are made for specific programs. So VSFAvatar stands for VSFAvatar. It was made specifically for VSFAce. It was made for, how VSFAce takes care of animations, their shader stuff and all that. It was made specifically for VSFAce. As for Vtuber Plus and Vneon, who do support VSFAvatar, the reason why they were able to support VSFAvatar is because during the creation of those programs, they kept into consideration of the VSF SDK. They integrated the VSF SDK into their own programs, like in the early times in development, and they made sure to add proper support for it. However, for Warudo, on the other hand, Warudo has their own system. Now, I have spoken to the dev about whether or not VSFAvatar can be added into Warudo. From what I've remembered, what they told me, they said that with Warudo's animation system, because it conflicts way too much with the VSF SDK, it is the reason why VSFAvatar is not supported natively in Warudo, because the animation system, basically. And also, I think there were like other stuff too, but even then, there is a Warudo SDK for a reason. The Warudo SDK pretty much acts like the VSF SDK, except it's specifically for Warudo. You can do plenty of stuff with the Warudo SDK, and this is the biggest news ever, and you guys are gonna love it. You can convert your FBX models and go straight into asset bundle models without VRM at all. Ain't that great? So yeah, you can't do that with the Warudo SDK. You can just ditch the VRM stage and just go FBX and into your asset bundle model, basically. However, there are some stuff I will mention regarding FBX versus VRM, but I will say though, I will be covering how to do both, how to convert FBX to Warudo Avatar format as well as VRM to Warudo Avatar format, so hopefully it will help you out. But with that being said, I hope that explanation helps. So let's go ahead and get started with the whole explanation, or the whole process on setting up your Warudo project file, as well as making your Warudo avatar, basically. So what you're going to be needing is you're going to need to have Unity Hub right here, and you need to make sure that you download 2021.3.18. If by any chance you do not have that installed, in the description below I should have a direct link to this version of Unity you can download, and you should be able to get it, so that way you can properly install it. There should be a 32-bit and a 64-bit version, or at least I think there's a 32-bit one. But basically, you could download, based on the description. And once you have it installed and such, the next thing you are going to be needing is you need to get the mod project, basically. So right here on the website for Warudo, there is a mod SDK, which I will send direct links to, the whole, the documentation and the direct link to download the SDK here. So So basically, when it comes to SDK, of course, you need Unity 2021.3.18. That's the only version that works. If you have 2020 or 2019, it's not going to work. You're going to have some issues. But besides that, though, there are technically two methods into installing the SDK. Method 1, I highly recommend please stay with this method. Method number 2, it's only for a last resort. I do not recommend it because when I was doing the whole SDK stuff, it was a pain in the behind to set up, so I do not recommend this. But if by any chance that you have to do it in case the other one does not work, then you may do this. Otherwise, please use this version. It's much easier. It takes a couple seconds to set up. But basically, once you have this downloaded, basically, what you're going to then do is that we're going to create a folder. We're going to prepare the folder for the Unity project before we can open it up in here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to where my Unity project files are at, which is in this file explorer here. And basically, I'm going to have BandyZip here. So BandyZip or WinRAR, whichever your extraction thing is. So basically, when you do download the zip file, what we're going to then do is that in File Explorer, you're going to, wherever you want your Unity project file to be, I'm going to right-click, Add New, and then I'm going to name this Warudo SDK Test. So I'm going to do that, basically. And then after that, I'm going to select all that is in this BandyZip file here. And then I'm going to click and drag it and put it into the new folder that we just created. From what I experienced, like when I do only, like when I extract just the entire thing only and it generates the whole name here, it sometimes, for some reason, Unity didn't like that. So you have to make like a folder for it basically. So I recommend doing that. But otherwise though, pretty much, once you have the Warudo SDK there and, all your stuff there, what you're going to then do is you're going to go into the Unity Hub right here. You're going to click on Open. And then what you're going to do is you're going to scroll all the way down, find your the project that you made. So mine is Warudo SDK Test. So you're going to click right here, and then you're going to click on Open. And once you have that, basically, the next step, of course, is basically waiting for your Unity project file to load up, basically, which will take probably a couple minutes. It can take like 2 minutes. If I were to say average, it could take about like 5 to 10 minutes depending on your PC, but it should not take too long, honestly. Usually for me, it takes about like a minute or 2 minutes, probably about 2 minutes probably. But either way though, once the Unity project is open, once it's ready and such, I will show you about the whole thing about FBX and VRM stuff to Warudo Avatar format. So let's do a time skip. So once you have your Unity project loaded up, it should look something like this. You should have the Unity 2021.3.18. You should see the Warudo folder as well as the Warudo SDK. And I will say in advance, Unity VRM is already in the project already. Just want to say that, heads up, you don't have to put your own Unity VRM version in there. It's already in the SDK. So all is taken care of for you. For the most part. But pretty much what we're going to do is we need to prepare a mod. That way we can have a folder which the Warudo SDK will recognize, so that way it will be our it's the folder that we will use to be our exportable, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Warudo and click on New Mod. We're going to name the mod whatever we want. I will name it after my character, but otherwise, though, you can name it however you want, and you can, of course, have your own file path if you wish, but otherwise, default settings are good. Create mod. You don't have to read the README file. It's just random stuff here, and pretty much, the first step we need to do, of course, is we need to import our model. Now, I am going to first discuss quickly, or I'll try to be quick, but it can be a little descriptive, regarding the FBX and VRM benefits. So, do keep in mind, also there are cons between the two. So when it comes to FBX, yes, you can convert your FBX file into a Warudo Avatar format without touching VRM. So you can technically say goodbye to VRM. However, there are some things to keep in mind about. While that is a benefit, the main problem you will experience with the FBX method is normalization bugs. And believe me, when I was doing my conversion experiments, I had a lot of them. So basically, it was mainly with my thumbs, and I know why, because my thumbs were modeled for Rococo and not for VRM, which I might have to look into that. But basically, depending on how your model is made, you need to really make sure that the normalization of your thumbs, or your basically your skeleton, you gotta make sure the normalization is all good, basically. So, in Blender, you can use the Cat's Blender add-on to force, your rest pose and all of that, so you can do that, or you could, mess with transformations over there. You can, if you're a Maya user, you could definitely also use freeze transformations. I believe it also applies to like your skeleton if you do certain poses. But either way, depending on the program, you have to freeze your transformations in the program. And when you do export as FBX, which I will show you, you will also, it is recommended but not needed, but I still would recommend it. It's also recommended that you utilize VRM's freeze T-pose. Little setting here, it also helps force the normalization, but at the same time, it's not guaranteed. From my experiment, even with those doing all of that, it still did not work out for me. I remember there was a rare issue I had where my arms were going 180 despite the weight paint being good, and it was because of a really rare normalization issue. The only way I fixed that, which is not recommended, was doing a skeleton transplant from an old model that actually did work with Warudo to my new model, basically. So I will say normalization on the FBX method will be a pain, but if you, depending on how the model is made, you might not have to experience it, basically. So I'm just giving that warning about the normalization of the FBX. It's a pain in the butt, but it is still, again, it could be a very much time saver depending on how it's set up. As for the VRM format, while yes, it's very annoying to make these hackers because you have to do 2 conversions to make it possible, at the same time, the VRM file format, it enforces normalization, so your chances of dealing with a lot of normalization bugs are very low, so it's definitely really nice to utilize VRM. Also, if you have pre-existing spring bones, it also makes it a lot more easier because you could just use your spring bones instead, and you can use a copy script to make things a lot more easier. For FBX, it will be a little bit trickier to copy your physics, unless you do have a script, of course, which it is possible. I've seen them exist before, but it depends on which physics setup you want. But either way, though, you choose whichever file format you want. I just wanted to at least address that, depending on, in case you're wondering what the difference are. I mean, technically, they're really, it just depends on the model, basically. But either way, for this first method, we're just going to start off with the FBX method. I'm going to show you that, and then we're going to go into the VRM one, which I have mainly just one advice I have to give regarding the VRM one, because it can be a little bit stingy sometimes. But either way, oh yeah, I also forgot to import my texture. So basically, you need to make sure you import your FBX and your textures into the folder, basically. I will, of course, time skip to where I finish all this, basically. But either way, though, pretty much just import your FBX file and we will go from there on setting up our FBX import settings. So once you have your FBX file imported, what you're going to then do is you're going to click on your FBX file, and then once you have your FBX import settings ready, what you're going to then do is you're going to click on model, and then you're going to select 2 things. You're going to click on read and write, and then you're going to click on legacy Blendshape normals, especially since it'll help fix all those weird shadow issues when your Blendshapes move. And once you click on apply, you pretty much have to wait a couple of seconds to a minute, so all this is basically applied. Also, the read and write, this is required by the, according to the instructions for the Warudo SDK, you have to make sure that this is selected. And pretty much, though, the next step that we have to do is we are going to have to set the rig to humanoid. So when you click on rig, you need to set it to humanoid. I will say quickly, just real quick, if your character is a quadrupedal or it has like a non-humanoid rig, and I'm talking about the bone structure, like the skeleton, only humanoid rigs can work with Warudo. Technically, I'm going to put this in quotations. You could have it where a non-humanoid model could work in Warudo, but you might need to... It depends on how you want to set up. You might need to do a lot of setting up for that character, probably some blueprints, maybe coding, depending on how intense the setup is. But I'm saying that as in quote-unquote. I don't recommend it, but again, you do what you want. If you want to experiment, go crazy on it. I heard you could do some stuff with the Warudo prop stuff, so I mean, you can do that too. But otherwise, though, you still need to make sure that it is set as a humanoid when it's a character, though. So please keep that in mind. Of course, you can still have like a humanoid skeleton, but the character can be like non-human, basically. So you can, do that. But otherwise, though, well, for now, we'll just stick with humanoid, click on apply, and then we just have to wait a couple seconds to a minute, so that way this can be processed. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do some configurations. The humanoid configuration, which if you have already, if you know how to do your config stuff, it depends on your model. You can, of course, configure it, set up the bone stuff accordingly to how you do it. Otherwise, though, you don't really have to for every model. Some models can automatically map perfectly. For my model, it doesn't map perfectly, though, which is a shame, but that's perfectly fine. But there is something I do want to at least elaborate. So first of all, well, before I elaborate, the first thing I do recommend is go to the head area here and then click on the jawbone and remove it. Unless you need the jawbone, which you can set up in the muscles and settings up here. Unless you need the jawbone, which I don't know if that's supported in Warudo, but you can probably utilize the blueprints to make that happen. But pretty much, I recommend delete it unless you need it. And then I do want to elaborate something because I've seen some VTubers who had this issue. So basically, this is not every model has this rig, but these are called metacarpal bones. Some models have it, some models don't. But basically, metacarpal bones, if you ever seen an actual human skeleton on the hand area, there are bones in our wrist, our palm area, and there are metacarpal bones. So these bones, there are some models that have it, some don't. And basically, sometime with Unity, it will accidentally register the metacarpal bones, thinking that they are the proximal ones, or the first bone of the finger that should move. So if your model by any chance have these bones here, you need to make sure you actually change it. That way, so instead of it's metacarpal, you have to make sure that it is set accordingly. Map it properly, that way it won't give you that error anymore, basically, as you can see, pretty much. So I'll go ahead real quickly. I'll also do one more real fast. Let's see, so the ring finger here, gonna quickly do that just to show again, but I won't finish the entire hand though, because again, this is just for demonstration purposes. But pretty much when you're done, of course, making sure that everything is mapped properly. I will also say, actually I should finish one of the hands because there is an error that does pop up. So I think I'm gonna show you what this error looks like. So one moment, so let me go ahead, add the pinky right here. So add the pinky ring, we'll add the middle finger here, and then as you can see, the error did pop up where it says character not in T-pose, and this is the error I want to say. So basically, if you ever see an error like this, there is a way to fix this. So what you'll need to do is you need to click on pose, and then you need to click, it's at the bottom of your screen, and you have to click on enforce T-pose, and that will fix that error that popped up. It's also highly recommended to do that because there may be a chance where your thumbs might actually, or it doesn't even have to be just thumbs, it could just be your arms or shoulders. It'll basically help with the normalization, but even then, like I said, with my experimenting, it still did not work, and I had to do some really crazy stuff to get it working with the normalization. But either way, you can go ahead and click on apply, so that way it's all, it starts like applying all your changes here basically. And then after that, you just have to click on done. So after like a couple seconds basically, you can, we can then begin the process of setting up the character so that way we can export it out as a Warudo Avatar format. So I will time skip to where this entire process is finished. So once you finish setting up your humanoid configurations, what we're going to then do is we're going to prepare setting up our materials, and then after that we are going to then set up our avatar to be used with the Warudo, basically be exported out as a mod so we can be able to use our character in Warudo. But basically, what we're going to do is we're going to right click, we're going to click on create, we're going to click on folder, we're going to name this materials. That way, once you click on the FBX file, you're going to then click on materials, then click on extract materials, then click on material folder, and then click on select folder here. And this will allow us to be able to extract the materials from the FBX file, so that way we can be able to have the ability to edit our materials, so we can have custom shaders like Poyomi, Arctoon, Liltoon, your own custom shader, as long as it's supported in Legacy Unity, as in the pipeline. If you're using HDRP or URP shaders, you're gonna have to, the way you're gonna have to set that up is you're gonna have to contact Tiger regarding getting a build for Warudo in those engine or those pipelines. I don't think it's very available yet, but just keep in mind though that technically, quote unquote, you could get the whole HDR URP only if you contact Tiger about it. But I will probably wait because I think it might be I think it might be in the paid version of Warudo. I don't remember, but either way, we're gonna go ahead and click and drag our model, the FBX model, into the hierarchy right here, and pretty much once we have that, you can of course set up your materials if you want. Otherwise, right for now, you want to make sure that your model is, the normalization process would work. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our avatar here, right? Now, it is highly recommended you go into VRM 0 and then click on Freeze T-Pose. And basically, once you have that, it should hopefully, quote-unquote, normalize the avatar. In my experience, it did not. Now, I'm going to clarify this also, because this is something I found out during a blooper recording, is that if you select this, right, you select this little extra file here, and you go into Warudo and set up character, while yes, it does have normalized bones set to true, if you were to export this out as a Warudo avatar, it's not going to export the mesh. It's just going to be broken. So do not export this out. Do not touch that. I mean, again, it's exported out, I understand, but it's like, it does not work. So please click on the actual main one where you have hopefully the normalized bones, which again, if you go into Warudo and you set up the character, it will say it's false. Like I said, the tips I'm giving you regarding normalization should hopefully help it or hopefully reduce the chances of it. But having like a perfect solution, sadly, to my knowledge, as of right now, I'm not sure how the Warudo SDK really detects normalized bones. Until I know, sadly, it's going to be false whenever you do FBX to Warudo avatar format. So pretty much click, so once you have the freeze T-pose set up, you're going to click on, set up selected game object as character mod, which will basically turn your FBX file into a character prefab, basically. And then pretty much cross your fingers and hope that your character does not break in any way. But what you are going to see is that my thumbs, after this is finished, my thumbs are going to be broken. Up, and there goes Warudo. So what you're going to see is that, ew. So if you see something like this is very no bueno. This is not what you're supposed to have. So this is basically, if you ever have something like this and you try your best to fix it, but it still doesn't work at all, the best solution is to either A, use VRM, B, probably do a skeleton transfer with an old model or a model that you know that works. It depends on if you have other models that if they have like a proper thumb, or again, it doesn't even have to be thumb. I've also seen models where their arms would freak out and such with normalization. But basically, you might have to do a skeleton transfer with a model that does properly work and such, or you might have to try again with a transform, maybe change the posing a bit more and all that. But either way, just keep in mind, it is going to be a pain if you get this issue. I sadly cannot give a proper answer on how to fix it because it depends on the model. So just keep that in mind. But for the time being, I'm not going to fix it. I will have to do some more intense measures to really fix that for my model because I know what's wrong, but I really don't want to go through the process. But basically, though, when you do, of course, have your setup character and you actually did end up being the other 50% that ended up working, well, pretty much from this point, you should be able to have it where you can set up your materials, your constraints, your particles. In case you're wondering about animation, how do you set up animation stuff for your character? Well, it depends on what the animation is. If it's a humanoid animation, you're going to have to export that as a separate mod. If it's an animation where you have a tail wag or a wing wag or something non-humanoid on your avatar specifically, what you'll have to do is you'll have to go into Windows, you'll go to animation, you'll go into animation, which is basically Control-6 right here. And then here, what you're going to do is you're going to create an animation clip here. You're going to basically here in your mod folder, you're going to right click, create new. I'm going to name mine animations. And here we're going to create just like, you can name it whatever you want, idle animation or wing wag or whatever the heck. And basically here, I will say though, when it comes to making the first animation, if you don't want an animation to be on by default, it would be recommended to not have anything in the keyframe, which I'll explain a little bit. But first, but usually I would recommend have the first animation that you made be like the idle basically, and then the rest kind of like follow through, like if it's the wings or something like that, or tail. But basically you should have a controller here set to character. If you have this is good because now you can use the controller instead to basically be what your VSFAvatar animation would be. But for Warudo, it's in the controller here. If you want to do some, of course, toggling your animation via blueprints and such with Warudo, you're going to have to go into Animator, which is in Windows, Animation, Animator, and then you're going to have to go into the parameters, and you're going to have to set up floats. Basically, you can say this will be like wing up or something like that, and you'll have to like basically set up, again, this is kind of starts going out of my knowledge because I have not gotten time to experiment this. But pretty much here you can be able to like set up like, let's say, I don't know, like a transition. I'll have to make a couple animations, but basically you can set up like different animations, and you can set up like different transitions for it, like different stuff basically. But pretty much from what I heard, if you use Feline's node for the animation toggles, you'll have to set them up as the floats basically, and then if it's set up properly, you could be able to get a toggle. Again, I can't really explain it right now because I do not have enough knowledge as of the current time to explain the whole animation process. But when I do have enough knowledge to actually do it, or if someone else makes a tutorial about it, great. But whenever I do get the knowledge for it and I actually get the process going, then I will make a tutorial about how to do that. But for the time being, from my knowledge and what someone else told me, this setting up the animations with your anim files here, making sure there's a controller here, making sure that all your animations are set up here with the floats, kind of like VR chat basically. Pretty much, if it's set up properly, you could be able to, of course, use Feline's node, which is in the Discord server, which I'll link the Discord server if you want to download some Warudo blueprints and assets there. But depending on how to set it up, you'll be able to get animations. But either way, enough of the animation stuff, because again, I don't know that quite yet. But basically what you're going to do is, once you're finished with all your setup, basically, have everything. If you're doing VSFAvatar to Warudo Avatar format, I will say do not copy the avatar in your VSF Unity project file. Just copy only the components, like your materials, your particles, your meshes, like if you have an extra mesh that you use, only copy those that are not like the VRM file itself. Otherwise, you may have issues when it comes to exporting it as a build, basically. And you'll have to like reassign it to the model, basically. So just keep that in mind. Either way, though, the next thing we're going to do once you have your character set up and everything and all that, we're going to go into mod settings. And pretty much here, this is where you can set up your, your profile basically for the character. So you can set will be your character's name. This is the version type of the character, who made the character, or whatever prop environment it is. Set up your icon, and then for the mod export, you need to have a mod export. So by default, it will be like not there basically. In case you're wondering where you can get the Warudo file path for the characters folder, you're gonna go into Warudo here, click on, go into the editor. If you don't see the editor, just press the escape key to basically get the editor, basically. But pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to click on Open Characters Folder, and then you're going to click the top here, Control C, then go back to Unity, and then Control V here, and then basically that will have your mod directory when you export. And then once you have that, make sure, make sure that when you, if you have multiple mod folders, please click on the switch active mod basically. And if you have other mods, please make sure you're choosing the right one. Now, I will say, you can literally, like, it's not like VSFAvatar where you select this character, go to Warudo and build mod. In fact, actually, this only exports if it's in the folder. The character prefab here must be, the character prefab as well as this mesh here, these two right here, and even the avatar right here, these things here, if these are not in the mod folder that is detected by the mod tools, basically, you will not have your avatar exported. So please keep in mind that you need these three to have a successful export. Otherwise, at least minimum, you can still have your animations and all your other stuff, basically, obviously. But when it comes to being in the folder for being exportable, these three need to be in there. As for the character, again, Poyomi does not have to be in the same folder as this, as long as it's as detected in the character prefab, pretty much. But either way, though, I just want to make sure that's elaborated in case you have a build failed error or anything like that. Again, if you have a failed error, please join the Warudo Discord server. Report your issue in the support forum. That way, anybody who has the experience or even the devs themselves, they will gladly help you out. But either way, what you're going to do is you're going to go into Warudo, build mod, and you should be able to build your mod from there. You pretty much just sit back, relax, watch it, and see if it'll work. Again, like I said, issues may occur, especially if it's an FBX file. But overall, though, you should be able to have it exported. For my case, it is right here, Warudo kind of Fuyuko. And what we're going to do is, in here, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Warudo, I believe. So let me go ahead and open a new scene real quick. So default scene, click on character, click on kind of Fuyuko Warudo. And as you can see, there's my model and it's breathing, and this is an FBX file, so that's really awesome, basically. Of course, there is no physics. You will have to set that up manually and all that, but overall, this is, like, in a nutshell how you get the FBX file into Warudo. As long as you follow those steps I said, you should be a-okay. Again, if there's issues, please join the Warudo Discord server, and we will be happy to help you out from there. But otherwise, though, pretty much that's for the FBX method. What about the VRM method? The VRM method, again, is a lot more easier. However, there's like one tiny little nitpick thing. It's not even a nitpick. This is something that's kind of required, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So what we're going to do for the VRM method, we're going to go to Warudo, build a new mod, and I'm going to call this one Kana VRM. And then I'm going to go ahead and create mod. I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to go into my Kana folder. Then I'm going to click on the Kana VRM here. And then I'm going to click and drag it into the folder here, basically, for the mods. And then I'm going to time skip so that way you'll see the VRM file already loaded. So once you have your VRM file into the mod folder, what you're going to then do is you're going to click and drag your VRM file to the hierarchy, basically. And pretty much you can pretty much do pretty much any edit already, kind of like VSFAvatar. You just import it and then go crazy. Go add your lovely add your lovely shaders like Poyomi, add your constraints, and you already have physics. But if you want magical cloth, you're gonna have to get rid of your spring bones here and then just replace with magical cloth. But I will say this is something I did notice, just a little thing I think I know. So let's say, for instance, I'm gonna create a quick material real fast, just a quickie one for demonstration. Let's say I go over here, click on my model, I click on the materials here, right? And then let's say I have this material, right? So if I'm doing like, I copy my VSFAvatar stuff, right, my materials, because I experienced this. I copy my materials over to my own Warudo project file, or my project, and basically I had to like click and drag because I didn't want to remake my materials basically because it was too much work. And let's say for instance for the hair, I wanted it to be like, I click and drag, and basically I want it, let's say, to be white, right? The thing is that if I were to export the character as a mod right now, like I did the whole setup character, build mod, and all of that stuff, and I did not go ahead and right click and apply this bolded part here, it will make my hair go pink basically. So please make sure if you're ever doing any sort of clicking, dragging, or any sort of changes to the actual model, and it does have like this bolded, like it goes bold here, with the exception of this. Obviously there's some exceptions, this you don't touch, but here you see how this one's bolded basically because I changed the material. I need to make sure I right click on it, click on apply to prefab. That way, when I do convert to a Warudo Avatar format, it will actually apply it. So keep that in mind. Depending on what you're doing, you might have to do some right click applying. Not all the time, obviously, like not everything, but if you do notice that you added something and it didn't export properly, it's probably because you didn't right click and click on apply. For some reason, for FBX models, no, you don't have to do that. From what I've done, no, you don't do it. But for the VRM file, I noticed you had to do that, which is kind of annoying. But it works with me basically. But pretty much, I will leave my model the way it is. And what I'm going to do is, once you, the user who you set up your shaders, your stuff, whatever you want basically. And like I've already said, same process. If you want animations, click on your avatar, click on create. Find your folder. So mine is in VRM. I'm going to add a folder, animations, and then I'm going to add a new animation here or something like that. You will see that there's a controller right here. You have to make sure you have a controller, make your animations, and again, this is above my knowledge as of right now. But you'll have to like set up your animations here. Make sure you prepare some floats so that way, for if you do use a feline node, which I believe you can get on the Steam Workshop. I could be wrong. But basically, again, you can join the Discord server if you need help with that. But basically, you can be able to utilize blueprints in Warudo to trigger animations and such, basically. So, yeah. But either way, though, for the most part, once you pretty much have all your stuff set up, basically, you select your model, go into Warudo, and then go into setup character. For this case with VRM, we do have it where normalized bones are true, which is very good. We're going to click on the setup, click on OK, and then we should have the prefab for the character here, basically. For this case, because VRM, this is already a prefab in its own. We just need to make sure that the character prefab is right here, basically. That's about it. You don't need to see the other, like, meshes, like, in comparison with FBX, where you have to see this avatar one and then this extra mesh that pops up. For VRM, you just need to make sure that the character prefab is, like, right there. And then you just click on your character here, click on Warudo, go into mod settings, make sure that you also set up your mod export to the Warudo characters folder, which I showed earlier. And then what you're going to do is then click on it, Warudo build mod, and then let it do its thing. Again, if you have errors, it's probably because you maybe register something correctly, or maybe there's a script you have on accident, like if you have like a VRM Springbone copy script, like I do, or you have the VSF scripts or something like that, and it's accidentally on the model. Like, it could be on the project, but if it's on like the prefab model, it might give you issues. So just be mindful, like double check everything. And again, join the Warudo Discord server if by chance you have the issue. But either way, though, what you're going to then do is you're going to go into Warudo, go into your character here, main properties, find your file. Mine is kind of VRM, and then boom, there you go. Now the character pretty much loads. Again, there is no custom shaders because I didn't set mine up, but you can still see that it did at least export perfectly fine, and it's intact basically. I also want to say for the record too, by the way, because I think someone's going to ask, what about how the FBX model, when you do FBX to the Warudo SDK, or the Warudo Avatar format, how does the tracking work? Like, you can understand where the bone tracking, how that's going to happen, but what about the face tracking, you may ask? That is a little trickier because it depends on how you set up Warudo. For my case, when I did the whole FBX testing, I did FBX to Warudo Avatar format. I was able to get working because when I set up Warudo, I set up the VRM file first, and then after I finished setting up with that VRM file, after I exported the FBX file to Warudo Avatar format, I was able to surprisingly had those settings intact basically. So my emote toggles, my AirKit blend shapes and such, they were intact. They were able to be detected even without the blend shape clips. So that's apparently what I did to get working. Otherwise, if it doesn't work with you and you really don't want to use VRM, you're probably going to have to utilize definitely have to utilize the blueprints to sort of like re-register those blend shapes to be detected. I would definitely say, again, I could be wrong because again there are some parts regarding the SDK I do lack certain knowledge of because I am just recently studying the SDK right now and I'm rushing this tutorial too while I'm at it. But when it comes to that, you could, I definitely recommend for your FBX, if you're going to go the FBX route, please make sure your blend shapes have the exact name, like the exact name. Like, don't name it gibberish names. Actually have the proper, correct spelling, basically. The capitalization, I don't think it matters, but have the proper spelling, basically. I believe for ARKit, of course, it'll be auto-detected. For expressions, definitely you'll have to set up the blueprint. You'll have to state in the blueprint that this is not a VRM, proxy blend shape, basically. That it is just a blend shape from the FBX file, basically. So, yeah. But either way, though, for the most part, though, again, it depends. There's so much more you could do with the SDK, but alas, that is pretty much out of my knowledge, basically. So, that's all I can pretty much say regarding the SDK thing. I really do hope that this sort of helps you out. But pretty much for the most part, though, again, it is pretty similar to the VSFAvatar or VSF SDK, basically. Again, it will take some time getting used to. I highly recommend please check out the Warudo documentation, as it has pretty much a lot of the information you need to learn about Warudo, basically. Again, there's a lot more you can do with the program, but I definitely will say you really have to touch the nodes. Like, it's like again, Warudo, you can use it without the nodes, but if you really want to get farther with Warudo, you have to touch the nodes, and you really have to touch the parameters, similar to Live 2D, basically, Like, we rig models with parameters, and Warudo also intakes parameters, so yeah. But either way, though, I hope that this tutorial helps you out. If you have more questions about Warudo, please join the Discord server. While yes, I'll try my best to answer these questions, at the same time, I'm still learning Warudo just like you guys. So please be patient. Please be patient with my knowledge, I will say that. But otherwise, though, if you want to, of course, get a head start learning Warudo, please join the Discord server. Read the documentation. It will help you so much. It will get you so much far into Warudo, basically. But otherwise, though, if you have a tutorial request, please let me know. I'll try to make it as fast as I can. But otherwise, though, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!